Okay, we're at the Museum of Developer Art, and I'm standing here with Alex, who actually curated the pieces we're about to take a look at. Alex, can you tell me a little bit about why you chose these pieces for a developer festival?
So the two artists that are here, Ezra Miller and Vincent Jose, are both developers themselves and artists. And so their work is really about using code to create beautiful natural simulations. Vincent creates fluid dynamics that are interactive, which is a very hard thing to do. And Ezra creates data visualizations that are essentially transforming into flocking starlings. Yeah.
And why these pieces at this festival?
So I wanted to find artists that could understand the sort of developer mentality and communicate to developers and show that by using developer tools you can still create really beautiful work. So that's really the main reason.
Awesome. Well, we were looking at them earlier and that really comes through. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm standing here with Vincent in front of his art. Now, I have a few questions. It's amazing, and I really need to know more. But first, can you tell me just a little bit about this piece? Your process making it, what you used, and what it represents to you?
So, this piece is called Crude Structure. It's an exploration of how liquid-like shape form kind of deforms and react under various forces and stimuli. So I've been fascinated for a long time by fluid dynamics because it's like you see it everywhere in nature, like stream, rivers, smoke, volcanoes, and it's all this incredible variety of motion, very intricate. And historically it's been very computationally expensive, but now recent progress makes it possible to do the simulation real time, and that makes it very exciting for me to build interactive piece using this technology. Also to explore all kind of different how it's going to react, playing with different forces and what happens if we slow the time down or make it really fast. And I think it seems familiar and both mysterious because we're kind of used to how things react to physics laws. So I think one of the challenge for this piece was the scale and making it interactive for a large number of people. So it's using 5 different Kinects, which is a depth sensor that can tell me in space where the people are. And it's computing forces based on where people stand to push the liquid around, so that most people who are not always familiar with sensors and interactive installation would get it. There's little hints you're gonna see your silhouette and some modes where the water falls on you is easier to get your interaction and how you influence the result. And I think. And watching the people tonight, so it was a premiere for me as well to I tested with a few friends, but it's what are people gonna do and how they're gonna react, and a lot of people are really getting into it, and that's pretty amazing to see that.
Okay, so one more thing is that the size of this is massive. I don't know what your studio space looks like, but I presume you did some prototyping that wasn't this big before. How did you kind of conceptualize a piece this large?
So I was lucky I could prototype a smaller slice, and then I used VR and Oculus to kind of
really?
Get a feel for the scale of the piece, which I had done in the past for other art installations, which were also pretty big scale. And I'm based in New York, and so a large space is kind of a rare thing to get.
Yeah.
So VR for me is it's really useful to get a sense of scale. And the other thing is that since everything is running real time, I have a number of parameters I can adjust quickly once I see the piece for the first time on site at scale, which I did tonight. So I slowed down something and tweak some timings to make it better. So that's the two way I worked on this scale.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your art with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks. It's great to be here and have this opportunity. And thanks to Alex for curating this medium of developer art.
Thank you. Okay, now we're looking at the second piece, and this one is by Ezra. Ezra, could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so what we have here is my piece Data Memoration, which I built using WebGL. So it's just running in the browser. And it's a flocking simulation as well as a data visualization.
So one of the things that I noticed about the piece is that you definitely have something to say about the really clear data that shows up every once in a while on this graph, but then it breaks out all these data points into this flocking behavior. Like, what brought you to that artistic choice?
Right, so yeah, it oscillates between this sort of like formless cloud of birds swarming and then this really well-defined graph. I think to me it's sort of trying to get at questions about whether humanity can organize itself as we face a lot of problems as a society. And I think the difference between this like formless swirling cloud and that get at that idea. I don't know.
All right, man. Hey, let's talk a little bit more about the tech since we're at the developer conference. You said this is in the browser?
Yeah, so I make websites using WebGL. This was built with Three.js, which is a pretty, like the go-to WebGL library, and I use it out in all of my work pretty much. And it's built using shaders, which are programs that run on a computer's GPU that let you do computations a lot faster than on the CPU. And it's basically creating everything procedurally, which means there's no real image textures being used or any other real assets. I think the main asset is the data, and then everything sort of comes from that. So.
And I also noticed in addition to the flocking, there's this almost waterfall effect. What is that?
Right. I actually added that in right recently before we set up. I think it just adds a little more dynamism to the background. Kind of cuts through the clouds, and it's a feedback loop process, which is something I use in all of my work pretty much. Yeah, I just thought it looked.
Leave it at that mystery.
Yeah.
I like that. All right, Ezra, thank you so much for sharing your work with us today.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Wow. All right, so I'm here at the VR Drive-In, and I'm standing with Sarah, who actually helped build the experiences that attendees are going through right now. Can you tell me a little bit about what they're experiencing?
Yeah, so we're Google Spotlight Stories, and we are creating content that directors create their own stories in this medium. So we have Pearl by Patrick Osborne, which was nominated for an Academy Award this year for Best Animated Short Film, and we have the Gorillaz' newest music video, which is the first music video for our group.
Now, you worked with the production teams and the artists in building these experiences, right?
Yes, yes.
What's that like? Do they have all sorts of questions? Like, what's different from a normal production experience?
Yeah, it's definitely a new medium for most people, but both took to it very well. So you have to think about creating a film in 360 space a little bit differently than you would a normal 2D narrative film. So you have to make it interesting in all directions, if you will.
Very cool. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Don't be
largest foosball table I have ever seen. Look at this thing. Coming to you live from the World Championships of Pair Ping Pong here at Google I/O. I'm just kidding, we're having fun. All right, there's probably something I could say, but honestly, this is just mini golf, so I'm gonna go have some fun. What am I doing here?
All right, so it's a 360 video booth that records high frame slow motion. So anything that you do looks cool, it's gonna be, and you get to share it right away. Does that sound good? Yeah. All right, so the main rule is you don't leave the platform until I catch the arm, so you don't get hurt.
Okay.
Other than that, you can do anything that you want. You can jump, move. Moving quick is cool. Standing perfectly still is cool. Either way.
But don't move slow.
Yeah, because it'll be kind of melodramatic.
So like a jump or something?
Be very, yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, you good to go?
All right, I'm just testing it out. I don't really know what's going on, but I'm gonna go with this. This is it. Woo! I am tuckered out. Thanks for joining me at the block party here on the first evening of Google I/O. We saw a lot of really cool stuff, and I hope you had as much fun as I did.